Good evening, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is the Marion City Council meeting for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. Those joining us from home, thank you for joining us. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harper.
Here.
Ms. Atkins. Here. Mr. Jensen.
Here.
Mayor Abu-Osley.
Here.
Mr. Brandt.
Here.
Ms. Gedalia. Here. Mr. Sterned.
Here. Thank you. At this time, we have a moment of silence. Thank you. We have no presentations or proclamations on the agenda this evening, but we have one very special recognition and presentation. I would like to ask our Parks Director, Mike Carolyn, to come forward. With your mask. So this is a bittersweet moment as Mike is preparing to retire. Very well deserved, and he's earned it for 32 years with the city of Marion. Just as I was coming on council in 2013, Mike came to the department. Oh, here we go. I'll start over. Mike is retiring after 32 years with the city of Marion, and since 2013 as the director of the Parks Department. And in my entire experience on council, I have worked with Mike as director, and he has been just a great person to work with. Mike exemplifies the idea of public service, the idea of that we are here as a city to create, to give good services to residents and to serve them well, to help them solve their problems and to give them a great quality of life. I always say we pride ourselves as a city on the quality of life that we give to residents. And Mike and his department are at the forefront of that. You think about all the things that have happened in his 32 years, and especially in the last decade, all the changes that have been made, all the wonderful additions and facilities and amenities that we have that have come to fruition under Mike's leadership and that have really set Marion apart and made it a standout community in this region and across the state, and has helped to win so many awards for the city and just given us great recognition. And most of all, recognition from our own residents. People are so happy with the opportunities they have to enjoy their life, and a lot of that is through the Parks Department. Mike, we thank you so much. We're going to miss you. The 32 years of continuity and the institutional knowledge that you have about the department and everything that we do. We know you've left it in good hands, but we will miss you, wish you well, and come back and see us often. So I have a plaque here that says, Mike Carolyn, in appreciation for your years of dedicated and devoted service to the city of Marion and its citizens. July 5th, 1988 through March 26, 2021.
I was going to save it to the end of the meeting, but give me a second.
Lon, would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mike is one of the department heads that precedes my time with the City of Marion, and I've gotten the opportunity to work with him in both his former role as the operations manager of the Park Department and then as the director of the Parks Department. And Mike is one of those folks who always put the city first and made sure that he treated every penny that the department spent as though it was coming from his own pocket. So he's been a great financial steward, and every park that you walk into, anything that you see that's been built since 2013 has Mike's fingerprints all over it. So the community is going to benefit from his service for decades to come.
Thanks, Lon. Oh, we'll take this off for just a second. I'm very humbled. So thank you. Thank all of you. I did prepare a little speech, so bear with me. I just want to say it has been my pleasure and my privilege to serve this community for the past 32 years and to have the opportunity to work and be influenced by so many great people. People like yourselves that have come forward, volunteered your valuable time to help shape and move the city forward. I want to thank you for your support and trust in myself and my staff throughout the years. Together, we have developed a great park and recreation system that has and will continue to provide countless opportunities for this community. Over the years, we've been faced with many challenges, but this organization has always rose to those challenges, and our successes have always outweighed those setbacks. I know it's a challenging time that we're going through right now, but it's a perfect example of how this organization rises to those challenges. To all city departments and staff, I just want to thank you all for your support over the years. And to my dedicated staff, I cannot thank them enough for their commitment and definitely their patience with me and their commitment and support of all my goals and objectives through the years. There are great things on the horizon for the Parks and Recreation Department, and I leave you in good hands. One always hopes in any profession that when you step aside, you are leaving things better than you found them. I hope I have. It's been a great ride. I will miss all of you. Thank you for everything. And it truly, truly, truly has been my pleasure to serve this community over the years. Thank you so much.
Okay, congratulations again, Mike. Moving on with our agenda, we have a public forum at this time, which is a section in our meeting that is set aside for comments from the public on topics which are listed on the agenda, but which are not associated with a public hearing. This is a time for comments from the public on things on the agenda, but not part of a public hearing. Have we received any comments outside the meeting?
I have not. Robin has her hand raised. If you're wanting to talk during this time, I need name, address, and topic in the Q&A box.
We'll wait just a minute here then.
There's no comments for the public forum.
Okay, so we have no comments for the public forum. We'll proceed with the consent agenda. Ms. Gadela. Oh, Mr. Sternad, I'm sorry. Yes.
If you don't mind, Your Honor, I'll take this one. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as follows. This will be items A1 through F4, resolutions number 28636 through 28651.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented, including items A1 through F4, resolutions 28636 through 28651. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. I apologize for that, council member. Okay, for this next section, as well as regular agenda item A1 and 2, I will turn over the meeting to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Aboasali's abstention. This consists of the single item, item F1.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Aboasali's abstention. Is there any comments or discussion on this one item? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. That is approved with one abstention. Now we'll move on to a public hearing on the proposed development agreement with Genesis Equities, LLC. Can we, Amal's doing a presentation? Thank you.
Your Honor, this is an update to an existing agreement with Genesis Equities to complete the construction of the 6th Avenue project and soil remediation project. The developer is expected to bridge a funding gap, and they're also expected to invest at least $10.5 million to develop the property marked as phase 1 on the map. This project was originally authorized under the Central Corridor Urban Renewal Area. However, this last phase of the 6th Avenue actually falls under Collins Road Urban Renewal Area. We have amended the Collins Road Urban Renewal Area to include the project, and the last step before we can authorize annual appropriations is to execute this agreement. Staff is recommending approval.
Okay. So clarification again, so this is not changing necessarily the scope of the agreement, but changing a technicality on which TIF area this is being utilized in the future.
Exactly. So this project is going to be supported
Right.
by the Collins Road Urban Renewal Area
Okay.
instead of Central Corridor.
Okay, we'll give it a minute to see if there are any. So at this time, we will take any comments from the public for or against this proposed development agreement with Genesis Equities. We'll give that a minute.
I've received no comments.
Okay, so at this time, without hearing any comments related to this public hearing, the public hearing is now closed.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28652, approving development agreement with Genesis Equities LLC, authorizing annual appropriation tax increment payments and pledging certain tax increment revenues to the payment of the agreement.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve resolution number 28652, approving the development agreement with Genesis Equities LLC. Are there any comments or discussion from the City Council? Okay, This time we'll vote then. All those in favor of approving resolution number 28652, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. The resolution is approved with one abstention. I'll move the meeting back to the mayor.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have a presentation from members of the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity.
Your Honor, the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity group brought forward 6 recommendations that are related to racial inequities. I've included those in your packet. They're here today on the line, and they would like to speak to items 1, 3, and 5. And I would like to report to you that the Civil Rights Commission had a robust conversation with the group, and they're looking forward to working with the group in addressing those matters that are under the city's purview.
Okay. Are there several members who are going to be speaking or just one?
There's 3 that are on right now, Circe Stumbo, Sophia Joseph, and Anna Clymer.
Okay. I would ask each person to introduce themselves, state your name and address, as is our policy, and then go ahead and proceed. Welcome.
Hi, so I will start. This is actually Janessa Carr. Me and Sophia are together right now. So yeah, my name is Janessa Carr, and you said address?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 2258 Bison Street, Unit A, Marion, Iowa, 52302.
Welcome.
And did you want to introduce yourself?
What doesn't just go this? Sophia Joseph, 1580 James Drive, Marion, Iowa.
Okay.
So I guess we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes.
The Marion Alliance for Racial Equity has 6 demands that we believe that the City Council either has the authority to help us complete, or you guys can just help encourage for them to be completed. We have 6 total demands, but we really wanted to take the time today to get focused on 3 of them, the 1, 3, and 5. The first one is to stop racial profiling in traffic stops and establish a Marion Citizens Police Review Board with the authority to require and analyze data. The third one is all city departments must continuously work to be more welcoming, inclusive, respectful, and diverse. And the 5th one is the mental health liaison available for Marion police crisis calls. And we want to take the time to really break down these demands and talk about what they would look like in Marion.
The stop racial profiling, as we talk to people that have been participating in this movement, as we hear from the public, and then certainly from my public experience, personal experiences, this is a major problem in Marion. And what we've really heard from the community is that if we do not approach this one, we really have not. This is by far the #1 concern that applies to Marion. We're calling for should investigate complaints, and we want it to monitor. We want it to be a proactive. So we want the Marion Citizens Police Review Board to both be proactive and someplace that handles it after the fact. But we would like to start to look at this data, figure out how the data came about, what goes into it, and how the problems can be solved. Circe, are you going to take this one away?
Sure, I'm happy to. This is Circe Stumbo. I'm at 339 Pheasant Avenue in Marion. And we did speak to this a couple of weeks ago. So if folks who are listening in want to go back and listen to the public comment at the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago, we went through each of these with more detail. Today, I think the key we want to indicate is that we need to be looking at racial profiling, whether it's implicit or explicit, and that a vehicle to do that is a Citizen Police Review Board. That we know that would be a board that ideally could both investigate complaints and monitor data for disproportionality. We know Iowa City has one. Actually, nationally, there are more than 150 communities that have some form of a Citizen Review Board. No 2 of them are the same. So the specifications for the design are definitely an area for conversation and deliberation. I think the key is to find one that really does fit for Marion and Marion's needs. So the ask that we are putting forward to the City Council is that we'd actually like to recommend that, much like was suggested at the work session, that there be a working group comprised of the Marion Alliance, the Marion Mayor, the City Manager, and the Police Chief, as well as if we could have one representative from the City Council, so that we could be a working group that, as I think the word was, that we could be nimble. We could work in between the meetings and really draw up what that kind of a review board could look like, what authorities they might have, how they'd be placed on the board and that sort of thing. And then similarly, how we would measure impact so that we could track over time to ensure that we're meeting that ultimate goal of stopping the either implicit or explicit racial profiling in traffic stops, as well as other issues that arise. So again, our suggestion, our recommendation we put forward is to form a working group that we could work with in between City Council meetings. Sophia, I'll go back to you for the third one. Or Anna, if you're right there, you can jump in.
You bet. This is Anna Clymer. I am at 2475 McGowan Boulevard, Marion, Iowa. And the third of our demands really is around all city departments must work to be more welcoming, inclusive, respectful, and diverse. It's evident that a few people in Marion understand the extent of racial inequities here and others do not. There's a gap of knowledge in regards to just historical context of race, implicit bias as key factors. We believe that training all city staff is critical in moving forward this conversation. It's easy to turn away from explicit racism in our community. It's a lot harder to understand what's implicit and everyday racism that is occurring in our community and how we can address it. In building that third point of inclusive and welcoming, respectful, and diverse city departments, we want to assess what training looks like and how it can better address both awareness and behavior change in our community to be more effective, to ensure that there's metrics of what changes in regards to responses, awareness, practice, policy in our community where there is disproportionality or disparity for our Black and Brown neighbors in our communities. To be most effective, training should be at least 8 hours in duration and distributed over time. So it's not just a one and done. It really is putting it into practice and reflective learning to be able to be embedded within the job. It's not a set aside. It is part of the understanding of the role and representation that employees pay, as well as councils and commissions, to be reflective of the community's perspective of social racial injustices that occur right here in our backyard. Being able to incorporate some coaching and support for those implementations of training and learning, that it's not just, again, one and done. It is repetitive. It is ingrained in the practice, in our meetings, in our shared language. And for our city to also look at what is our current data around diversity and representation on our city employees, on our councils and commissions, and what is it that we could potentially look at centering how we recruit, how we hire, and how we retain or promote more people of color for city jobs, contracts, as well as boards and commissions. As city departments becoming more culturally competent and instituting efforts to help overcome the influence of implicit bias, people of color should all thrive in our community, and we say that we want that welcoming and inclusive community, so let's put that into action. We recommend that the working group we called on to address our first demand also address this one in order to connect both the outside perspective and inside perspective of how racism plays a role in over-policing Black and Brown communities, citizen review boards, as well as the reflection of the general population in leadership and boards and commissions here in our community. The city may wish to add 1 or 2 other people in the working group, such as representatives of the Civil Rights Commission or the city staff as needed. So that's in closing for our point 3 of all city departments working towards a more welcoming, inclusive, and respectful and diverse community. And I'll pass it over to Janessa to speak about the mental health, number 5.
Okay, so number 5 is just really the importance of a mental health liaison being available for all Marion Police crisis calls. To our knowledge, it sounds like that conversation is already starting, but we would love to be included in that conversation because we know that this is not only going to benefit Black and Brown people in the Marion community, this is going to benefit everyone. You know, we feel that Marion needs more counselors, medical professionals, social workers, and educators, and fewer police. We want to make sure that the mental health liaison not be on the police force and budget. We want the funds to come from another agency in order to preserve the independence and the culture outside of policing, and just more of that that community-oriented, that mental health training, just heavily focused on that. We feel would best come from an outside organization. Currently, we're aware that this is taking place in Cedar Rapids, and they, you know, do have, and they call it the law enforcement liaison. I'm sure many of you guys know about this. And so our ask right now is that we know that negotiations are going on right now. We would like to see, we just call for regular updates during the city council meeting so that we're aware of the progress that's going on with the negotiations between Foundation to fulfill this need. And then we would love to know the impact of this partnership and what else needs to happen so that this demand is fully met. And we really believe that someone needs to be available for 24 hours in a position like this. So yeah, that's just the importance of a law enforcement liaison, and we hope that you guys would work together with us on that.
Okay. Is that the end of the presentation?
Yeah, just in summary, we just want to work collaboratively with you all. I don't think we view this as like an us versus them. We just view this as there's a lot of things that need to happen, and we'd like to come together with the city to get that done. We have not yet approached the police chief, but we have every reason to believe and hope that he would want to take place, be a part of these conversations. But we do feel like it would be beneficial if the city council does kind of put that expectation on him that he should be at the table, rather than us trying to go through middlemen to get information to the police. They should be at the table. We should understand each other's humanity. We should talk, have real conversations, and figure out how these, changes can really occur. The culture needs to change as well. And I think that's a big thing. We're not just trying to come up with things and say, hey, you guys should do all these things. Because the truth is, if it's us versus them, if you guys don't buy into it, if you don't truly believe it, it's not going to happen. And the number one thing that needs to happen at the police department has to be a change in culture. A lot of things, people have to kind of open their eyes and see some things and how these, how this all plays into systematic racism. So we would just really like to form a partnership and really get this done, but we do feel like the police chief needs to be involved. And that is the conclusion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will ask for any comments or questions from the council at this time. Well, if you have questions for the presenters, this is probably the right time to ask the questions. If you have any questions for clarification or anything like that from the presenters. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Gadela.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I thought regarding number 5, I did not know that about Cedar Rapids. I'm glad to hear it, and we can certainly hear about their process, et cetera, for the mental health liaison. I feel like even before your group came to us, I think Iowa, unfortunately, is one of the worst states in terms of our mental health support generally. So I think any help in that area is very good. I had a question about number 3. I'm wondering if you guys are planning to approach schools about these requests. they're public institutions, and so their cultures, there are a lot of people there, and certainly young people where you can really impress upon them certain things. I know they don't have a police force, obviously, but you know, if your goal is racial equity across the board, I completely understand why you're talking to city government. I'm just curious if you're also talking to the schools or any other entities, and what your plans are for the rest of the community, if you have any in that direction.
Yes, ma'am, we actually are. This is Janessa Carr speaking. I actually work for one of our local school districts in Marion. And that's definitely something that I brought up, and I'm not the only one that has, is just the need for cultural competency training, diversity training, implicit bias training. And like, we also want to bring to light that, like, we believe that racial equity is necessary in all systems in Marion, and this is really just the beginning. These 6 demands here are what we are starting with, but we have no intention to stop. We plan to keep going, and we want to infiltrate any system in Marion to make this a better place for, not just for the adults, but for our children and for this next generation. I would much, you know, I'm pretty passionate about that and would much rather see students leaving both Limar and Marion as either allies or students of color who feel empowered and who feel listened to and feel like they were in a community that cared about them. And so this work is really, really, if not most important in schools, because these are, you know, that's the next generation of leaders, city council members, all of that. So we are, that's really, really important to us.
Great, I'm glad to hear it. I just hadn't heard anything about that yet, and I agree with you. And plus, you know, when kids are younger, you can certainly, they're just more impressionable, and having a conversation and instituting things at that level, I think, can be a bit easier. In terms of the city, I think that could be an interesting partnership too, to talk to schools about how all of this change or whatever is decided upon, how it rolls out, sharing resources, because, you know, a lot of what you're asking is going to require staffing and budget. And, you know, if you follow our meetings, it takes, we're government, it takes a long time to get things discussed and approved and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious about how the process will go, but glad to hear it's coming to the schools.
Yes, they definitely, to my knowledge, I know that at Limar at minimum has, you know, every intention of getting an agency in there to train staff. And then we also have some stuff that'll be implemented at each of the elementary, the middle school, and the high school level. Just in conversations I've had with, like, the superintendent, associate superintendent, and some other people there. So it's definitely on the agenda for us to continue to work with and work through.
And just to add to that, collectively as a community, that's part of the reason we provided the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity Facebook page, is for a platform for community learning, because it is our neighbors that really create community. And you're right, it's not just city council, it's not just commissions, it's not just police departments, things like that. It is all inclusive of all hands on deck. It's really going to take all of us to build this community that we see and or want to see, because as Janessa has stated previously, everybody has had differing experiences in this community, and being able to empower those that do not feel seen or heard in this community is going to be critical in continuing to move forward these steps. So it will take all of us, and we appreciate the support that we can receive from city leadership as well as community leaders and partners.
Anyone else on the council have questions for the members of the Alliance? Anyone else? Well, I, for one, want to say that I'm encouraged by the spirit of collaboration and the constructive approach. In our first meeting with most of you several weeks ago, I said, I don't believe there are two sides. We should all be on the same side of this in affecting positive change. I appreciate your presentation. Look forward to the process. And we do want to hear from someone, one of you, I think it was Anna, mentioned, you know, people who feel like they're not heard. We do want to make sure that we're hearing everyone and that we're hearing from a broad base of the community, get a true sense of what people's experiences are here. We can't come up with solutions until we really know what the issues are that people are experiencing. So we do want to have a broad an opportunity for input from a broad section of the community, talk to as many people as we can, involve people who want to be involved, and really come up with a long-lasting solutions to whatever issues we do identify. So thank you for being here, for bringing these issues forward, and we appreciate it. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and discuss the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity recommendations.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is my mic on? I think so. Okay. It has been moved and seconded to receive, file, and discuss Marion Alliance for Racial Equity recommendations. Discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So I just would appreciate, right, that there's this nature of collaboration, and I certainly can see a lot of advantages of bringing a working group together to have good discussion. So I would be in support of us moving forward and putting together that working group, so we could collaboratively figure out the best way to make our community as welcoming as we can for all people.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I think is critical with this effort is, and specific to the working group that is established, that there are clear end state objectives that we're trying to work for, that those are defined, and that in achieving those, that there are discrete actions that are mapped out so that we can know that we're making progress. And having those objectives and discrete action items come to council to be periodically reported on. I've seen efforts of similar nature get bogged down and quite honestly get stalled because there is some emergent, different, higher priority item that occurs. And if there isn't a platform to maintain focus, then it either has to restart or it doesn't get accomplished as effectively as what I think is important here. So I guess to decode what I just said is to put some project structure around it.
Any other comments, discussion? Yes, Ms. Gadela.
I don't have anything new. I just want to echo what Colette and Grant both said. I think a working group is warranted. Our citizens are asking for it. I don't know in what shape or form, but I also think Grant's point is well taken, that we need to have goals set that we're working toward and that we're checking in on periodically to make sure that we're making progress and we're not just meeting to meet or just meeting to give anecdotes. So yeah, I think both of those were very good.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of receiving, filing, well, and I guess we've had the discussion, but there'll be more discussion to come. The Marion Alliance for Racial Equity recommendations, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the ayes have it and the motion is approved. Look forward to the process.
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 28653, approving the proposed allocation of hotel motel funding for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution number 28653, approving the proposed allocation of hotel motel funding for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Ms. Gadela.
Your Honor, I make a motion to table resolution. Do I have to move it and then table it? I know I've been asking this for 3 years, so I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I move to
approve.
I move to approve resolution 28654 of the Marion Strategic Plan for fiscal year 2021 through 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28654, approving the Marion Strategic Plan for fiscal year 2021 through 2023. Discussion.
We had a robust discussion about this with the leadership team this morning, and we're just asking that there's a few items that we need to clarify, particularly about the process and expectations between now and December. So we wanted to hit the pause button for a couple of weeks to give a chance for a couple more internal meetings, just to make sure we're ready to move it forward when council's ready to adopt.
Okay. Are you willing to make the motion?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Move to table resolution number 28654 for the Marion Strategic Plan for fiscal year 2021 through 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table resolution number 28654. Discussion on tabling. Go ahead, Renee.
Can we get the KPIs when we get the report? Will those be available as well?
We have quite a few that have been submitted but not finalized. We can certainly give you a peek at the list that's been proposed.
Thanks. Thank you.
Other discussion on tabling? Yes, Grant.
Yes, I would just say, I think taking some extra time to get sufficient stakeholder commentary and work out any remaining details is the right thing to do, given the criticality of this document.
Okay, other discussion? All right, all those in favor of tabling resolution number 28654, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, resolution 28654 is tabled to an indefinite time, I guess, right?
It'll be back in August, but not sure whether it would be first or second meeting.
Yep, okay.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 28655, approving the fiscal year 2019, 2020 operating budget transfers.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28655, approving fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget transfers. Discussion. Ms. Gadela.
I know I have it in my packet. Oh, there it is. So this is the same exact document we looked at on Tuesday with no changes, correct? Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All those, or any discussion, further discussion? Sorry. Yes, go ahead, Will.
Can it be explained one more time where exactly? Can we have a presentation quick? Sorry.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this one.
Welcome, Zach.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor and Council. And Will, would it benefit to go through the entire presentation or certain aspects would you?
I guess more reasoning behind moving these, because this was from the excess, correct?
Correct, in FY20. That was preliminary numbers.
And the reasoning behind moving them into these specific funds and reasoning behind the excess.
Okay, yeah, no problem. What I'll do is I'll give because I believe all city council members were here on Tuesday, I'll give a brief overview, and if there's any other areas that you'd like me to go further in depth, please feel free to let me know and I'll go a little deeper. In FY20, our preliminary numbers of looking at where we're going to end the fiscal year, two great things collided. One, we're expecting to get more revenue than we expected, and we're expecting to spend less than we initially budgeted for the year. On the revenue side, it equates to oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah, about $450,000 above budget, primarily due to taxation. They play a big role in this. So our franchise fees came up much higher than expected, which is great news, especially if that carries forward into next year. And then secondly, one of the two of the other areas is our building permits did extremely well in that area. We also had some sale of land that increased it. So overall, our preliminary figures is about 450,000, so a pretty large revenue side. On the expenditure side, it's about $2 million, and there's a little difference between the 2.1 million I'm talking about. We came forward with the 2.5 I'm showing you here, and that's because the amended budget comes into place, because mind you, we start with the budget at the beginning of the year, but then we amend it with any changes in our first quarter through last quarter amendments. So with that, we're expecting about $2 million, give or take, below budget, primarily due to COVID, with a number of closings of facilities and services that weren't provided. Also some staff vacancies for new positions that weren't carried over, and also in some departments just had some more turnover than we'd seen in previous years. So the net difference of those two for the budget year over year means that we're expecting to have about $2.1 million in additional dollars come in this year. When we had put together the budget back in, we normally March, back in April when it was adopted, we expected to be positive, or have positive fund balance of about $493,000. So we expected to be in the green for about $500,000, but this puts us about $1.6 million ahead of where we expected to be. So city staff, and looking at this, we said, you know what, is a recommendation that we move the entire fund balance forward, 1.6 million in the general fund, or is this an opportunity to look to see what other funds are currently underfunded, and might we move those dollars? And the recommendation from staff is that in addition to the standard transfers that would go into some of those dollars of the health insurance funds of $193,000 and $7,000 for employee benefits, that we move an additional $275,000 for employee benefits. That would help with some of the retirement costs that we're going to have ongoing for the next couple of years. In addition to that, and $600,000 for equipment reserve. Equipment reserve, mind you, this is one of the areas where we do replacement for our assets, and we're having some big facility buildings coming on shortly, which are going to be in re-equipping these facilities is going to be a hefty amount of dollars, also given the long life cycle for those buildings. Lastly, in there's $100,000 for tax stabilization, and as Lon gave a great history on, it's traditionally been used. So the initial intent of it, as you guys remember, is every year we have this kind of moving rollback piece. So the percentage of taxation that residential property taxes is taxed on. So this reserve was initially set forward to help with that, and to help in the years that if next year the rollback goes to a smaller percentage, that would mean on each house they would be paying less of the valuation of their property overall. So that helps stem that, in addition to cover other changes in the taxation. One of the questions came up on Tuesday, why don't we put more dollars there? Because that would still place us at about $459,000 or about $460,000 ahead of budget of where we budgeted to come ahead. One of the other areas that I wanted to also impress is right now, as we're looking at the other side of COVID, some of the delayed expenditures from staff, we've asked staff to put forward carryover items that they weren't able to spend in FY20 due to a number of factors, some of which being COVID. And staff has moved forward, staff has identified around $150,000. We're still looking at those to see the different layerings of those. So we expect that will reduce that dollar by $150,000. So that would mean with the recommendation that staff has before you, we would be ahead of budget this next year with these transfers of about $300,000. So we would still be ahead of where we expected our fund balance to be this next year. And I guess the question from council last week was, one of the questions was, is this the right amount of money to place in tax stabilization or move forward? So please let me know if you have any other questions.
I have a question just for my own personal knowledge. So the funds that you said were underfunded, and this was an opportunity to put money in there. So how does it, how do they become underfunded? Is it just we have unexpected expenses out of those, or it's hard to predict? I mean, what's the reason why they're underfunded? Because we assume that we do planning and we look forward and we try to have the right amount of money that's going to be needed in those funds, but how do they become underfunded?
The equipment reserve, Lon, do you know what year that came into being in the organization?
Like 1996, I believe. But like with equipment reserve, one of the challenges that we have in there is that a lot of the big pieces of equipment, the expense of them just goes up at a faster rate than we could put funding in there. So for example, I think if you look at fire apparatus, which is one of the biggest single expenses that comes out of there, their appreciation and cost year over year will run between 4% and 8%. And with the city budget, we just don't have the ability to keep up with a lot of those numbers on the larger side of things. So when we have an opportunity to do something like this, to bolster it, we can do a one-time transfer just to make sure that we maintain adequate cash flow in there. Some of these other ones, like employee benefits, are ones that we do routine transfers over. Like for example, one of the transfers that's contemplated in here is unused unemployment benefits. We levy for those every year, and then whatever unused portion of it is in the general fund goes into that fund. So we do build it up. We do try to plan for those expenses, but you never know 100% when people are going to retire and when they're going to retire at the same time. So it's an opportunity again for us to make sure that we maintain adequate fund balance into that going into the future. And I do know that one of the topics of conversation on Tuesday was the tax stabilization one. With tax stabilization, there'd still be, if we carry these dollars forward in the general fund balance, we can check in at the first quarter amendment and we can check in at the third quarter amendment for the budget. And if we're still running ahead, we can always transfer dollars into that. The other thing that I would say about tax stabilization is that's not a statutory fund. So it's not one that if the city council elects to put money in there, that it then has to be restricted for that use in the future. So it's not like road use where once dollars go in there, they have to be used for those specific purposes. So you as council, whether it's first quarter, third quarter, could elect to put more dollars in there. And if they were needed for something else, some other one-time expense, you can in turn then transfer them out.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, go ahead, Will.
So the reason I was bringing it up, because I've been thinking about it. And if we do have extra or surplus because of COVID and the fact that we're in a pandemic and people are struggling, why don't we take a majority of this money, set it aside, and then potentially when we come around for the next budget, we might be able to lower the tax rate for our citizens, because there are a lot of people that are struggling out there because of this. So that was my thinking about it. Instead of putting it into equipment and tax stabilization, is maybe make a new fund that is just for part of this money to go into to potentially lower the tax rate for our citizens.
The thing that you'd have to balance is that you'd want to make sure that whatever you did for a tax reduction was not eating into your core that you have to support for operating needs. Because if you do, then what you're positioning yourself for is a significant tax increase the following year. And that's a matter of philosophy. Would you rather have a reduction for a year and then a 5% increase the following year, or 2 subsequent years of 2.5? So that's something that would be up for consideration by council, but you have the same option even if it's just sitting in the general fund cash reserve. Because if we get towards the end of the fiscal year and we're projecting that we're still going to have a healthy fund balance, you'd have the option of applying that forward. As you recall, we actually budgeted in this coming fiscal year to use part of the fund balance strategically to outfit the new fire station. So we are using those dollars out of the fund balance to purchase equipment rather than going what I'd call putting it towards property taxes as an operating income.
Well, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think going forward, we're still in a lot of the next several months, the next 12 months have a lot of unknowns to them, to us, to the city, to our citizens, on what's going to happen. It's just like these numbers have been kind of a nice surprise. This is a good surprise. It could flip the other way during the next 12 months. So I think these transfers make sense to me. I think the fact that we still have an increased surplus over what we had budgeted, and that extra money is still sitting there, and it gives the city council and the city some funds to do something with if something arises that we're going to need that during the 12 months that we cannot foresee right now. So, you know, and I think the other thing I like to see is before we start jumping into a lot of new pools and setting more money aside for different things, again, I would be a little more cautious personally. I want to see this 5-year financial plan come out and say, what does that look like? Is that going to give us some opportunity to maybe to do some things? How is that really going to look? Is it going to look a lot tighter than we anticipate? Maybe it's going to look a lot rosier. So I understand Will's comment. I'm not against it, but I'm saying we have time. We may need to do that, but I'm more in a wait and see attitude of if it's needed, we'll address it. The money's there to do it. But I also want to see this 5-year financial plan and say, what does that show us? That's something we don't have. I want to see the big picture.
And it is true that we really don't know the impact of COVID yet on our city finances. So it's nice to have a little cushion, I think, you know, because most cities are predicting that they will be negatively impacted, that the revenues will be down, especially the ones, the sales tax and the road use tax revenues. And so I think it's probably prudent to just hold and see what the impact is after we get through this period and see what the actual impact of COVID is.
And to mention that that was the underlying recommendation of making the investments now for the areas that we know that there's some opportunities to shore up, but then moving forward, road use is going to be the ones that, because there's operating dollars behind road use, it's not just used primarily for capital projects that we're keeping a very close eye on and could have a more direct impact immediately.
Go ahead, Will.
So I completely agree with what you're saying, Steve, as far as we don't know what's going to happen and setting it aside. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I guess I'm not saying it the correct way. My thinking is, yes, put it aside, but not in these funds. That way we have it set aside as like an extra amount of money that we have, and potentially it could be used for tax relief. But if we do have issues, then I was going to bring up the 5-year plan also. We're going to know, hopefully we're going to know how things are going to align. And that way, if we do have this reserve sitting there, we can use it accordingly. And if things work out great and we can use it for tax reduction, then that's what we should do. And that's why I guess I'm not 100% in agreement with putting it in those specific funds and making some other fund that's kind of a rainy day fund, I guess, because of COVID.
Okay, Grant?
Yeah, Will, just maybe, so I'm clear, what you're suggesting is still sequester this money, but not lock it into these specific budget areas or funds.
Have a COVID fund or something.
Okay. So I do have a follow-on question, and I'm going to apologize if I don't get the terminology quite right. But this $1,175,000 and some change represents roughly what percentage of the total surprise overage that we have as a benefit to us?
Let me try to answer that question with the numbers, and then I can try to get into the math for you.
Yeah, no, I just roughly the percentages, because
we expected to be at a budget, and I'll just round it up, make it easier, about $500,000 at the end of the year. So about 2.1. So we're about three quarters more than what or if you take that, actually 300% more than we expected to be. 300 plus. Actually.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I would say is that really regardless of where we put those funds in, none of these are statutory funds where the money is trapped, that the council wouldn't be able to do a subsequent reversal of the transfer to tap into those dollars if you needed to. And I would just say that really with the way that city budget works, that money, if it's left in the general fund reserve, is going to sit there. It would require a budgetary amendment or action by the city council anytime during the course of the year to tap into those dollars. So with where it's going to sit, that's where it's going to sit. Any proposals that it would be used for any project at all or any type of expenses would have to come before you.
And in responding to that too, I think in hearing the comments of the 5-year forecast, one of the benefits of when we do move money between funds, it starts talking about the positions of long-term as we're looking at new facilities come online. And this is where it's really an annual view, is we're looking at all of our funds to say, now that we know one more year worth of data, how does that change our model for this year plus the ongoing years? And that's how the 5-year forecast is a living document. And every year it gets one step closer to the reality. And then we're still looking on the onset of, oops, if we have now that, because right now we're having pretty good years of property taxation. If it started going the other way, then our model will change and we start making different assumptions. So as Lon's mentioned, these are the placement of the funds we think best position us to move forward, to keep the sufficient balances in our accounts to continue providing the continuity of services. But we can still move them outside.
Okay, go ahead, Will.
So I understand what you're saying, Lon, that they're there, they can be reallocated for something else. But a year from now, if everything's going good or not going good, and we're doing the budget and I'm looking at the account balances, or even 2 months from now and looking at account balance, am I going to remember that there's 600,000 in equipment reserve that was extra? I doubt it. If it's sitting in a separate account that's, says that this is here because we had a surplus and we're going to remember that it's there. That doesn't mean we can't put it in a reserve or into equipment reserve someday. That doesn't mean we can't put it into employee benefits. But I'm definitely not going to remember that there's 275,000 employee benefits that's extra.
This is Leanne in finance. If I could just speak very briefly, we were very diligent in coming up with these numbers. So when you're looking at the employee benefits transfer of 275,000, those are actually estimates on employees that have picked retirement dates that we know are up and coming. So if we don't put that 275,000 there, obviously you're relying on the employee benefits fund balance, which I don't have in front of me, but I think was around 400,000, which would take that fund down pretty well. And then the equipment reserve fund, we're looking at estimates of equipment that will be going into the new facilities. And so that number again came up with those estimates. So I guess from a finance perspective, while it is a benefit and we didn't expect it, we knew those were areas that we were going to have to find funding, or I should say knew we would need to put additional funding there in the future. And we did have a lot of conversation about the tax stabilization and how much we should put there. And Zach and I went back and forth and we were like, well, at the end of the day, same comment Steve has made several times. If it's in the general fund or in the tax stabilization fund, city council has the authority to use either one for those purposes. And I also want to state that the equipment reserve fund really is an extension of the general fund.
To get to Will's point, I mean, if the council was inclined to do that and you wanted to just put it all together in one segregated place, you could keep an eye on it. The tax stabilization fund is the rainy day fund. So that would be the spot rather than setting up something new or something like that. My recommendation would be to put it there. And then when we get to maybe third quarter, we can look at that balance, see what we're going to do. And we could always then supplement employee benefits and equipment reserve at that time.
Steve.
Zach, can you go back to the screen? This shows what the new projected cash balance is going to be after we make these transfers.
I think it's the other direction.
Right there.
Actually, it would be the.
Oh, whoops.
That's where I started with trying to tell the story.
Yeah,
So
that's where you started.
Yeah. If you go forward, Terrell, it's near the last slide, I believe. Second to last.
Okay. So we're going to be projecting the year instead of 480,000, whatever that was before. Is that 952? Am I reading that correctly?
For the difference between the ending balances, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. When we did the budget, we thought, given the new budget, and mind you, this is also utilizing 335,000 in one-time reserves to pay for equipping the fire station. The 8.3 million is what we expected to end the year with. With including this transfer, we would end the year 8.7 million. Mind you, we're going to come to you likely in a couple months talking about appropriating more expenditures, likely no additional revenue of around 100 to 150,000. So there will be a further kind of reduction of these funding.
Right. So with these transfers, even if we make them as proposed, our cash position is still $460,000 greater than what we had originally budgeted with the revised budget. So we still have dollars there that the city council can use to allocate for some purpose in the future as well, just the same as what we're allocating tonight.
Correct. The estimate I have right now, also talking about carryovers, which you'll see in a couple months, but that would mean about $300,000 ahead of budget because we would increase our expenditures. So, but once again, we would still have, the way we look at our ending fund balance, we would be ahead of our 35%, which is our target.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Renee.
So if we didn't have the surplus, how would we make up for the money that Leanne said we were, like employee benefits, for example, with the retirements? Where would we get that if we didn't have this surplus money?
As I said, we routinely transfer dollars into that fund every year. It's just when you've got some significant retirements that hit it at the same time, you do tend to draw the balance down, and then it takes a couple of years to build it back up. So the primary one that we often will transfer dollars over for is the amount that we levy for unemployment funds. And the amount that we pay out for unemployment in every year just depends on how many cases where the city is on the hook for paying those benefits. But like this year, I think it's about $7,500 it's being transferred. Some years it's $60,000, and over time we look at the cash flow that we're going to need in those particular funds and try to be stable for the amount that we're transferring in year over year, so we don't see a lot of fluctuations.
So I like Will's idea. I'm not going to remember that we did this and that there's money sitting there. I'd prefer to leave it, even as you suggested, Lon, in the tax stabilization, and then every 3 months or whenever we need to, take a peek at it then. And if we do that, I'll vote yes, but otherwise I'm not in support of the current layout. I think I stated that Tuesday as well.
Any other comments? Okay. I mean, to change anything, you need a motion. So.
I'll make a motion to, go ahead.
But it would be more of, in my mind, it'd be more of a tabling it because we need to figure out where the money's going to go into, if it's the tax stabilization or if it's something new, or if there's consensus, obviously.
That would be a
sense?
fairly substantial change to the text of the ordinance. So what you would probably want to do, what I would suggest anyway, would be to table it and then have a discussion at the next work session, determine the amounts, and give us the opportunity then to come back with the new amounts in the resolution.
Can I ask a question? What do you mean about the new amounts?
The amounts that and the transfers are actually set out in the text of the resolution. So trying to amend all of those, you're going to make a fairly substantial change to the text of the resolution that you really probably don't want to make just by a motion to amend. And
gotcha. Thanks.
It wouldn't be clear to the public.
And one of the other areas just to mention there too, because we are looking at 2 sets of transfers. One are a standard set of transfers that we normally do at the end of the year that move forward about $200,000 in the health insurance fund and the employee benefits fund, and then the secondary amount that we're looking at called the additional transfers here. So
is that okay to table those transfers, or do those need to be, I guess we'd have to amend it to section them off.
I think my recommendation would just be to table, yeah, rather than try to parse it out.
Your Honor, I make a motion to table resolution 28655 approving fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget transfers.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to table resolution number 28655. Discussion on tabling. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
So I'm personally just fine with the way it's been presented. So I'm in favor of approving that. So I'm not going to be in favor of tabling.
Okay.
I don't think that is going to change the merit of what's been presented. So.
Any other discussion? Yes.
I'm with Steve. I won't be supporting the table either. I'm in support of what was proposed.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to let council know I'm completely fine with you tabling. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that if we table tonight, that delays us until August to finalize our journal entries for fiscal year 1920 and may delay reporting. I shouldn't say may delay, it will delay, but.
We'll delay what reporting?
Normally we would close out the year and then we'd start going through all of the different reports that we do. And I'm not saying that we couldn't just identify and flag areas where we'd have to go back and adjust based on what council says, but we wouldn't be able to run our final reports.
So my question to the council members who are in favor of tabling it, are you wanting the entire amount of the surplus to go into this tax stabilization only, or only what's after these transfers, what's left in the general fund? Because I mean, I think the staff's explained good reasons for these transfers. In my opinion, I rely on the staff. And I would be supportive of the remainder, right, which is what 400.
Estimate right now would be, as Councilman Jensen mentioned, about 460,000 ahead of budget. With
So
carryover
that
stuff
amount
being
being moved into, additional amount being moved into tax stabilization to be held for, you know, the reasons that you've explained. I mean, I don't see any reason not to support what the staff has studied and had thought about quite extensively and decided this was the prudent thing to do, personally. So go ahead.
So the 400, that would be after moving stuff into the employee benefit reserve, equipment reserve, and is that what you're?
correct.
No, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not an accountant.
That would just think. Yeah, no, there's a lot of numbers in the presentation, so I understand myself. I have my detailed notes. And if you go about 3 more to the
450.
it's the color, yeah, the other direction. Looks just like that one, but it's the post. There we go, right there. So column, the green column farthest to the right, the recommended, if you just focus on the ending balance number, the 8.3 million, that's where we expected to end the fiscal year, which would put us at how we look at our fund balance, 41% or almost 42%. With the transfers as recommended by staff, it would place us at 8.7 million right now. So the difference there is 460,000. That would be an additional dollars placed into the fund balance for the general fund for this next year, if the transfers go forward as recommended by staff.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would be talking about moving the other $460,000 into the tax stabilization fund, leaving it in the cash surplus.
That's the recommendation.
Is the recommendation, which I would support, because it also keeps that projected ending balance more in line with what prior years have been. Because we already are talking about a deficit for the current fiscal year 21. And we did that because we wanted to maintain or hold our tax levy.
That is correct.
So that's why that's showing a deficit. So by leaving that 460,000 in there, it'll take that 41% up more to a comparable level of the prior years, which I think looks good from a trend standpoint for citizens to be looking at as well.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still confused about, you're saying the 460,000, but you're still putting the 600,000 in the equipment reserve and
correct. Right. Yes, it's moving over.
And that's where I have the problem with. Because I
got you. The difference between, if you look at the proposed, where it's in there is proposed, So what we're looking at, and there's a 9.1 million. It's the other orange farthest to the left. Right there. That's where we propose to end the fiscal year, that would then move forward right now. And then we eat up some of the fund balance. So if we went further even back, we're one step back from that. We're expecting to end the year 2.1, and that's where staff is making a recommendation from that 2.1. Then let's move forward almost $1.2 million in transfers, which would then move forward after that 1.2. Then we'd be left with 952,000. And then when you put that back on the other side, since it's structurally unbalanced because of 335,000, that's where we pick up the additional 460.
And it's not that what I'm proposing is that money doesn't go into those accounts. I mean, I'm not.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, so I mean, all the numbers can add up to whatever.
Yeah.
It's the matter of where that money actually gets put, is what I'm
Makes sense. Yeah.
talking about. So.
Yeah. And I have to say, just kind of, I get excited because this is some pre-budget discussion, because this is the type of, I mean, some of the decisions that will be made this next year is in the budget discussion as well. And as long, just to reiterate, whether we move the dollars of, the nice piece about it is we're not placing them into a statutorily restricted fund where we can't move them on after.
Right.
The question you're asking, should we move them or not, is a question.
It comes back to when I get this packet right here and I'm looking at a fund balance, am I going to know that 600,000 is extra in there that we could potentially move around in a year from now?
But
that's what
it's 600,000 that the staff has studied and determined there's an upcoming need for.
Sure,
that we're going to have a need for it. They've just determined this is money that's going to be spent for equipment replacement. Am I correct? Same with the employee benefits. They've determined this is money that is really needed in there because we have upcoming needs.
And
is that correct or not?
And a review of the equipment reserve, and I have to say, in coming to the city, I was very glad to see an equipment reserve. Maricopa County, we didn't have something as robust in there. We would have more of the boom and bust cycles with our building projects. And the fact that we have such a healthy fund balance, the underlying methodology is that we have an average of what are the 5-year costs that we're gonna have, or the 5-year average to replacing all of our assets.
Sure.
So over time, as we're acquiring new assets and new buildings, those costs are rising. And also with some of the newer technologies, in some cases, they are increasing in cost. As Lana's mentioned, the inflationary rates are higher than what we put into that.
Sure.
So that's the reason for staff's recommendation to continue to get ahead of that.
I understand all that. It comes to the point where, kind of like what you said, we don't know. It actually goes back to my first point, is what if a year from now or the next budget round, we decide, well, we need to cut the tax rate because there's issues. Well, maybe we need to put that backhoe on hold for another year, that we put this money into that fund because we thought we are going to have to pay for it next year. And so that's where I'm coming from.
Go ahead, Grant.
Do we have the ability to these various funds that we are proposing to transfer into? Do we have the ability to monitor those and reallocate funds, for example, from equipment reserve into employee benefits? And so I presume we can make transfers from any one of those into any other?
Yeah, any of these that are set up as kind of subcategories underneath the general fund, you can move dollars around. The only ones you have to be careful with are the ones that have the statutory restrictions on the use of the funds. So for example, you couldn't take sanitary sewer funds and use them to buy computers for the library. But these are all inside of the general fund.
Okay. So I'm just wondering about, if we were to approve this as presented this evening, couldn't we then just impose on ourselves, perhaps in a work session, to have monthly reviews of the utilization and the drawdown of these funds, and to be in the power curve to decide a reallocation? And where I'm going with that Will, is to try to not lose visibility of the decision we would make tonight.
Sure. Can I'll
Go
make
ahead.
one more. And off of what you said, that would be great too, but then that's gonna have more staff time doing things where we could just put it in a fund and it's there and we know it's there, instead of the staff giving us an update continually. So I'll say it one more time. This all comes down to me picking up that piece of paper and saying, and seeing where that money's at, and knowing that that money's sitting there for us to potentially put into the equipment reserve, or potentially to do something else with it. So I've said my piece.
Anyone else? No? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to table resolution 28655. If there's no more discussion, we'll vote on the motion to table. Okay, all those in favor of tabling resolution 28655, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No. I believe we have 4 noes and 3 ayes. So the motion to table is defeated. So now the motion on the floor is to approve resolution number 28655. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving resolution number 28655, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
We have 2 noes, the ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you. That was good discussion. Thank you.
Your Honor, I
Yes,
move
sir.
to approve ordinance number 20-08, providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the Echo Hill Road Urban Renewal Area pursuant to section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa. This is final consideration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the final consideration of ordinance number 20-08, providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the Echo Hill Road Urban Renewal Area. Discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance number 20-08, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Moving on to engineering.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28656, approving contract in bond to Midwest Concrete Incorporated regarding the Grand Avenue spur north on existing trail to north side of Marion Boulevard Bridge over Indian Creek, PCC Trail, Seymour Phase 2, in the amount of $721,887.62.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28656, approving the contract and bond with Midwest Concrete, Inc. regarding the Grand Avenue spur north on the existing trail to north side of Marion Boulevard Bridge over Indian Creek in the amount of $721,887.62. Discussion. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, Mike. Do we know what the estimated completion date for that is going to be?
I believe it has a start date of August 8th, 2020, and it has 50 working days. So
50 working
assuming we
days.
don't have a monsoon fall, it'll be done this year.
Okay. All right.
Further discussion? We'll vote. All those in favor of resolution number 28656, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Steve?
Sorry. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 28657, approving contract and bond to Midwest Concrete, Inc. regarding the 2020 sidewalk ramp project in the amount of $203,448.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28657, approving the contract and bond with Midwest Concrete, Inc. regarding the 2020 sidewalk ramp project in the amount of $203,448. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 28657, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 28658, approving contract and bond with K&W Electric, Inc. regarding the 2020 Marion Fire Station traffic signals in the amount of $237,920.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28658, approving the contract and bond with K&W Electric, Inc. regarding the 2020 Marion Fire Station traffic signals in the amount of $237,920. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 28658, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Yes, Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 20-09, amending chapter 175, section 175.07 of the Code of Ordinances relating to subdivision regulations, maintenance bonds. This is the final consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 20-09, amending chapter 175, section 175.07 of the Code of Ordinances relating to subdivision regulations, maintenance bonds. Discussion? All those in favor of ordinance number 20-09, final consideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved. At this time, we have a public comment period regarding a request for South 14th Street parking modifications between G Avenue and C Avenue. How do we have comments that you're going to read, or are there people on with us who are going to comment?
Nobody has commented yet. We did receive several prior to the
Right.
meeting, and so I have slides for each of them. They were all forwarded to council prior to the meeting. So
Okay.
Don and Judy Jackson, 855 South 14th Street, spoke against the measure. Sheldon Sellers at 875 South 14th Street spoke against the measure. Bart Bach, 1405 G Avenue, spoke against the measure. Connie Lochner, 1305 G Avenue, was in favor of the measure. Janelle Brower with the Marion Independent School District spoke in favor of the measure. Sherry Funk at 1605 Grand Avenue spoke in favor of the measure. And Chad Zarutsky with the Marion Independent School District spoke in favor of the measure. And I believe that was it that we received prior to the meeting. And I do not have any that have come in tonight.
And Mike, have you received
All that I have
comments
received.
outside
you
of these
have.
comments?
No, not outside of these comments.
Okay. Discussion or questions, I guess. This is a public comment period, so well, we've received the public comments. I don't know if you have any questions regarding the public comments, even though they're not here to answer the questions, but any questions or observations about the public comments that were received?
I have a question. If there's anybody from the Marion Independent School District on one question I have, I drove that area, and again, I used to live in that area for a long time. But one question I had when I drove it right before the meeting today is, should there be considered, why is this all the way from C Avenue clear to G Avenue? I mean, that length of that stretch is, I think, a very, very long ways. That G Avenue is clear down at the bottom of the hill quite a ways from where the kids are coming out of the school. And so when I looked at it, I go, if it just went to F Avenue, which is still halfway down that hill on the south side, that goes down from C Avenue to F Avenue, I think is still quite a long way. So, and if I looked at where the driveways were, more of them coming out onto 14th Street, you start seeing a handful more down between F and G. So my question is, does it really have to be all the way to G Avenue, or can we just consider going to F Avenue and minimizing the disruption?
So I don't know if Janelle's on, but just from a staff perspective, if there was a more like a T intersection instead of just a cross intersection, that would be easier. Generally, it's easier for signage to keep it consistent along the street. So we don't like to have no parking on one side of the street and then transition no parking on the other side of the street. It causes confusion. So this was more to clean it up. I don't know if Janelle has an issue with it, but
I am on.
So I'll let Janelle talk to that, but as a staff perspective, that's generally what we try and do, is go from block to block in that series so that it's consistent.
Okay,
rather than
so
stop it short.
Sorry. Janelle, please give your name and address, and then you can go ahead and address the question.
Sure. Janelle Brower, 109 Garfield Street, Cascade, Iowa, but represent the Marion Independent School District. With regard to the distance or the length and whether that should go that entire length, that came out of discussion with Mr. Barkalow as he mentioned, but certainly we could work with a shorter distance if that's feasible based on Mike's perspective. Really, we need it to be able to extend through where the bus pull-out lane would be and to the south of that.
Yeah. F Avenue, based on what you just described there, Janelle, just going to F Avenue would satisfy that desire. So.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything else any questions for Janelle, or any questions or comments on the public comments that were received while we're still in this public comment period? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to the resolution. Then we can ask questions of the staff at that time. Mr. Sternad.
Yes, Your Honor. I move to approve resolution number 28659, approving the establishment of a no parking 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days, zoned to become a school pickup and drop-off zone on the east side of South 14th Street from G to C Avenue.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28659, approving the establishment of a no parking zone on school days from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to become a school pickup and drop-off zone on the east side of South 14th Street from G Avenue to C Avenue. Okay, now discussion, questions for staff. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
So could you explain it again, what the difference would be on extending this only from C to F versus C to G? Because I didn't quite understand what you described before.
Sure. So if you can see the drop-off zone, it's between D and E on the image that's shown.
Right.
Basically, it's just so that if you have at C Avenue, it just transitions there. So we're just trying to stay consistent. It's not a big deal to me. You just might add confusion to it. If you want to modify it to make it F, I have no problem with that. It's just we're trying to stay consistent by doing a chunk of it on one side of the road and not switch it partway down the street.
Picture shows it's F to C. It shows.
Okay, so what's the downside of only going to F? I'm still not following. It still seems to benefit to the people who live between F and G. If they don't have, they can park on that side of the road. And I don't see, again, based on what Janelle described, I'm not sure she's seeing the traffic going for cars waiting to pick up kids going clear down to the bottom of that hill. I mean, that's 3 blocks from where they come out of the school.
I'm fine with the motion being changed. That's just staff's recommendation.
Okay, all right.
So this is for safety reasons, right?
It's because of the queuing that's happening on 15th when you have both buses and kids being dropped off. So they're moving the parent drop off to the west side, and the bus drop off will stay on the east side.
Right. And is this exact plan or Is this part of the Safe Routes to School plan that we adopted
The one that's on the screen is
to G?
to F.
To,
But that's just where they show the actual prohibit parking. Again, I'm just trying to make it consistent by going block to block. If you want to amend the motion to F, I have no problem.
but I'm just saying, doing this, whether it's F or G,
Yep.
this
It's
is part of the
Safe Routes.
it's part of the Safe Routes to School plan that we have adopted as a city council.
Correct.
As for safety of students.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to just bring that out and make it clear. Okay. And then if it only went to F, would that, I'm just curious, the people who have contacted us in opposition, do they live in that, would that, two of them live in that area? That would drop off if we went to only F?
I don't know where that is. So,
Well, anyway, it was just out of curiosity. Okay, those were my questions. Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
I guess I would be all right with it changing to F, but I would recommend that the school pays attention because they don't know yet how far that's going to back up because they've never had this much traffic on South 14th. I know when my kids were younger and went to Starry, I picked them up on South 14th a lot, but there was never traffic back that far, but it was on 15th was the major. So I guess have them watch it, and if there is issues where it backs up all the way down, then come back to us and we can amend it, I would assume, or change it or add it.
Okay. But the motion on the floor now is G to C. So I would need a motion to amend if that was.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I do think it kind of matters where those two folks are located that are speaking against the measure. So are they in that block of?
Just for reference, to answer your question,
Yes.
Councilman Atkins, the houses between F and G Avenue start at 810 South 14th Street and go to 875. So
So they are.
that's the 800 block.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any amendment or?
yeah, Mayor, I would move to amend resolution number 28659, which would change it to approving the establishment of a no parking 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school day zone to become a school pickup and drop off zone on the east side of South 14th Street from F to C Avenue.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to amend resolution number 28659 so that it would read as approving the establishment of a no parking zone from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days to become a school pickup and drop off zone on the east side of South 14th Street from F Avenue to C Avenue. That's the motion as it would be amended. Any discussion on the motion to amend? Yes, Will.
What is it right now between F and G? Is it no parking on either side, or is it both sides can park?
I don't have that information in front of me. I know if it was done correctly, there'd be no parking at least on one side of the street, but I don't have that information in front of me. In the TAC report, it says there's existing no parking on the west side of South 14th Street.
That makes sense because I remember parking
right
down there on the east side to pick up kids. Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion to amend? Now we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor of amending resolution 28659, approving the establishment of the no parking zone from F Avenue to C Avenue. Please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved and the resolution is now amended to say approve the establishment of a no parking zone from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days for a school pickup and drop-off zone on the east side of South 14th Street from F Avenue to C Avenue. Further discussion on the amended motion before we vote? Yes, go ahead, Grant.
So I just want to emphasize what Will said. I think it'll be important for the school to watch if there is a need to come back and review this at a future date. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Further discussion before we vote on the amended motion? All those in favor of the amended motion, resolution number 28659, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion has been approved. Mr. Harper.
Your Honor, I move to receive, file, and discuss and concur with the TEEP study for the intersection of Highway 100 and Menard Lane, Oak Lane, East Post, and South 22nd Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to receive, file, and discuss and concur with the TEAP study for the intersection of Highway 100 and Menard Lane, Oak Lane, East Post, and South 22nd Street. Discussion on the motion to receive and file. Discuss. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28660, authorizing the submittal of an application for traffic safety improvement program funding for the intersection of Highway 100 and East Post Road to reconfigure the existing intersection with additional left and right turn lanes and to upgrade the existing signal for the new turn lanes, as well as a queue detection warning system for the westbound traffic of East Post Road.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28660, authorizing submittal of an application for traffic safety improvement program funding for the intersection of Highway 100 and East Post Road to reconfigure the intersection with additional left and right turn lanes and to upgrade the existing signal for the new turn lanes, as well as a queue detection warning system for westbound traffic. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of resolution 28660, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Motion is approved.
Mayor, I make a motion directing staff to perform a traffic warrant analysis for the intersection of Highway 100 and Oak Lane and evaluate the right-in, right-out option if signals are not warranted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct staff to perform a traffic warrant analysis for the intersection of Highway 100 and Oak Lane and evaluate the right-in, right-out option if signals are not warranted. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I make a motion directing staff to optimize the current traffic signal timing plan to improve traffic flow through the intersection of East Post Road, South 22nd Street, and at Menard Lane along Highway 100.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct staff to optimize the current traffic signal timing plan to improve traffic flow through intersections at 8 East Post Road, South 22nd Street, and Menard Lane along Highway 100. Discussion. All those in favor of the, oh yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, what's the cost associated with the optimization? Is there a single dollar amount? And
Yeah, so in the council packet, I have that it costs somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 through a second party through the Public Service Department.
okay, if it was cheaper, I was just gonna say, let's optimize the whole city, because who doesn't want more efficient flow? But okay, that's kind of pricey to do the whole city, so.
We can do all the main roads.
So
Could just chip away at it though.
right.
Thank you.
We can just put in more roundabouts.
Ah.
A lot more expensive than optimized.
We'll optimize first.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28661, approving payment to East Central Iowa Council of Governments regarding the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority in the amount of $17,432.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 28661, approving payment to the East Central Iowa Council of Governments regarding Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority in the amount of $17,432. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution 28661, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved. Sister Nat.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28662, approving change order number 1 with Borst Brothers Construction Incorporated regarding the 2020 sanitary sewer manhole project regarding the relocation of a water main in the amount of $9,487.26.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28662, approving a change order number 1 with Borst Brothers Construction, Inc. regarding the 2020 sanitary sewer manhole project for the relocation of a water main in the amount of $9,487.26. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 28662, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28663, approving a memorandum of agreement with Highview Investments LLC regarding the Tower Terrace Phase 7 project.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Harper, seconded by Councilmember Jensen, to approve resolution number 28663, approving memorandum of agreement with Highview Investments LLC regarding Tower Terrace Road Phase 7 project. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 28663, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28664, approving an encroachment agreement into the 10th Street right-of-way north of 7th Avenue for the purpose of installation of a handicap ramp to property located at 1007th Avenue. Kyle Martin, Martin Gardner Architecture.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28664, approving an encroachment agreement on the 10th Street right-of-way north of 7th Avenue for the purpose of installation of a handicap ramp for the property located at 1007th Avenue. Discussion. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to approach the council regarding this issue. There were a number of questions on Tuesday relative to the permanency of the proposed ramp, and since that time, it's been difficult to get a meeting with Mr. Martin representing the owner. So we were asking to table this item until the next meeting, or we can just table it until we can bring it back with the answers that we're looking for.
Okay. There's a request from staff to table this motion, this resolution. Yes.
Can I ask a question, I guess, before
ahead.
we do that? When you do speak with Mr. Martin about this, it would be nice to know, or let him know maybe, because what I'm leaning toward, well, let me ask you this first. If they do this and the trees come out and that has to be redone there, obviously that will be done prior to the reconstruction of that area for the 7th Avenue streetscape and reconstruction. Okay. So in my mind, since they need this ramp, and I'm not opposed to handicap accessibility here. They need this ramp right here. I think it should be their responsibility to pay for removal of those trees and whatever needs to be done, because it's gonna have to get ripped out in a yearish when this gets redone. So I don't see why we need to go in as a city and pay for doing that for them, for their request to go in and redo it again and pay for it again. That's what I'm going for.
Was
So if you could ask
was
that.
that even part of their request?
As a part of the request to encroach, the trees would need to be removed.
At our expense?
The 2 trees that are identified in the illustration. So in review of that, the Parks Department has slated those to be removed in anticipation of an encroachment. They would be improved. They would be removed, I'm fairly certain, as a part of the streetscape project anyway. I'm not sure much more on the condition of the trees. If by my recollection of them, I think they've served their purpose at this point, and I don't know if they're ash trees or not, but that all kind of comes into play as well. But nonetheless, I guess the Parks Department could probably speak a little bit more to that if there was a concern. But
Well, okay.
I guess the question is that I would ask, and is it the council's position that the owner should pay for the removal of the trees as a part of the project? Is that what's being?
I'm sorry. Right.
Go ahead.
There's more than just removal of those trees. I went over there and looked at it, and that green electrical pole that's close to the corner there, I assume the sidewalk needs to be at least 5 foot for ADA accessibility. Okay, that's less. That's like 4.5 feet. So there's not, with their ramp coming out as far as they say it's going to come out. So that would have to be removed. So that would be another expense to the city for their ramp. So
I believe the pole is owned by Alliant, and that would be removed. Is that
so Alliant pays for moving it and moving all the wires and everything, because they're live wires, from what I'm being told.
Well, they would pay for any of that. Someone else would.
and where the trees are, all that needs to be. I mean, there's no way you can walk through there right now, or when the trees are gone, it all has to be re-leveled, and yeah, it's a mess right there. But
hold on. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, thank you. A different question, so I understand this ramp would go in, then it would have to be removed again to support the activity on the streetscape project. Seems like we have a cart horse sequential problem here. Is there a driving need to get that ramp in if the streetscape activity is going to occur in approximately a year? I guess I'm just thinking, do that in cycle with the streetscape work.
Their restaurant is planning to open in December. And so I think he's trying to make it accessible to everyone.
What's that?
As is required, right? I mean,
the thing that, and all of this, I think, is what we need to talk about a little bit more internally based on the what's being proposed. I think a lot of this would come out as we talk about the project, but clearly with the concern the council has, I think it's just best that we can push this decision off when we have the answers and can present a fuller picture to the council. I think that's what I would ask, because all of these things have been kind of danced around, I guess you could say, internally, like, okay, what are we going to do and how's this going to work? But we know we have to resolve the issues. But I think the public and the council is wanting to know that before we proceed. So I think it just makes sense to move that forward. So.
Yeah, I think that would help. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think you're going along the same line of thinking. I was going to say I think we have to have a presentation, not just to approve the encroachment agreement, but also how is this going to be done before we do the new streetscape? How is it going to be done after the new streetscape goes through? And I think we also talked about Tuesday, how is this going to be built? And what are the materials they're going to be used? So if it's going to be built once, tore out, and then built again, is that going to be done in a different manner, different materials? I could understand that, given what we're just talking about. And if the first one, if that's going to be temporary, maybe that's built differently than the second one being done in a better manner with different materials. So if you can kind of bring both those pictures back to us. I can't approve an encroachment agreement based upon, that's a very key intersection for this city.
Yep.
So how that looks, how we do it, how it's going to look a year and a half from now, 2 years from now is important.
And an iconic building.
Absolutely.
I think we all have an interest in making sure how, that it looks appropriate. So, yeah, go ahead.
Tom, this is more of a personal question on my side, but they haven't talked anything about the vacating of those entrances to the basement. And I just because of my fire background, I know how this building is connected underground, but are these two entrances and exits then proposed to be vacated and basically holes filled in and concrete poured over them? Because I know those are critical components to that building, and the way firefighters move horizontally across all of those buildings through the basement. So I'm just curious from that perspective of, is that the proposal?
So there's been some preliminary review of that, and it really depends on the capacity of what's being proposed, or if it's even going to be used for public space in the basement. So, I don't know that that's been 100% clarified, but if they did proceed and block those entrances, then occupying that area would then be limited based on fire code access. So I think at this point, their proposal was that they would be blocked and there wouldn't be any use down there.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Anyone else? We still have the motion on the floor for approving the resolution.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to table resolution number 28664, approving an encroachment agreement into the 10th Street right away north of 7th Avenue for the purpose of installation of a handicap ramp to property located at 1000 7th Avenue, Kyle Martin Gardner Architecture.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table resolution 28664. Discussion on tabling. All those in favor of tabling resolution 28664, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion is tabled to a later date. Mr. Jensen.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 28665, approving plat of survey number 2395 for part of lot 8, block 9, original town, now city of Marion at 694 7th Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28665, approving plat of survey number 2395. Discussion?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Tom, have you had people approaching, asking about purchasing these?
No.
Or is this to get it all cleaned up and? Okay.
This is just the first round of some of the plat work to clean the parcels up. So in the event that somebody was moving forward, we'd have legal descriptions and abstracts so we could work diligently and quickly. A lot of times when we do get the requests, we're kind of on our heels trying to figure out the parcels. So there's a couple other pieces that we're waiting on that will be likely be acquisition plats. I believe that we're going to proceed with acquisition plats on a couple of them as well. So thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 28665, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Mr. Brandt.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 28666, approving plat of survey number 2396 for part of lot 5, block 10, original town, now city of Marion, 708 7th Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28666, approving plat of survey number 2396. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 28666, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28667, approving plat of survey number 2398 for part of lots 3 and 4 west, half north-south alley, block 22 of Original Town, and this is 707 7th Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28667, approving plat of survey number 2398. Discussion. All those in favor of resolution number 28667, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 28668, setting a public hearing for August 6th of 2020 regarding an amendment to the future land use map of the Marion Comprehensive Plan from single-family detached residential to neighborhood commercial and rezoning request from A1, rural restricted, to BL, business local for property located south of Tower Terrace Road and west of Winslow Road. This will be the Donna M. Morrissey Revocable Trust.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 28668, setting a public hearing regarding an amendment to the future land use map for the Marion Comprehensive Plan from single-family detached residential to neighborhood commercial, and a rezoning request from A1, rural restricted, to local business for property located south of Tower Terrace Road and west of Winslow Road. Discussion. Yes, sir.
I just want to point out, and for those maybe who are watching and reviewing the slide with the illustration, that's a large piece of property on the south side of what's Tower Terrace Road. And I think the council is well aware that there's only a small portion of that's proposed to go to the local business district, which is a commercial district. A majority of that area is proposed to be and remain in that ag. So it's a little deceiving by the illustration. And I know without a longer presentation, that would be difficult to do, but I just want to point that out for everybody.
Well, yeah, thanks for pointing that out for people who are participating at home and seeing this. So. Any other discussion? And there are no decisions being made here tonight. This is just for the setting a public hearing. So, all right. We'll vote. All those in favor of approving resolution number 28668, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved. Moving on to the public forum. This is a time set aside for comments from the public on any issue or topic. Do we have anyone in the queue?
I do not.
And did we receive anything to be read prior to the meeting? Okay, we'll wait just a short while to see if anyone is going to indicate they want to address the council.
I have not received anything.
Okay, we'll proceed from the public forum. Just if there is someone who wants to address the council or to discuss any issues with the council, we're all available outside of the meeting just as well. So if people are free to contact us to meet or discuss by phone or any issues. Okay, on to council member comments. Start with Grant.
Yeah, I just want to extend a big thank you to Holly for the detailed walkthrough on her project planning for the library and discussion around that. I had a strong appreciation for the work that they're all doing.
Okay, thank you. Renee?
Yeah, two things. First, congratulations to Mike. I was hoping that we were going to get to vote on his retirement tonight because I was going to vote no. Not that it would matter, but just, you know.
We could vote to table it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Far in the future.
When I came to Iowa, when we were moving here 10 years ago, the parks were really one of the things that drew us to Marion. And just, you know, we had never been to Iowa before, and Iowa's a beautiful state in general, but Marion's got a lot of special things to it, and a lot of it has to do with just the pristine parks, and we have 24 parks plus, and all the amenities at the parks. And they're really a gem here. So I'm so proud of them. And obviously you have a big hand in that and you leave a big legacy. So thank you, you and your staff, but particularly under your leadership. The second thing, I guess, is really to Public Works. After we had that storm, there was so much debris, and I couldn't believe the magnitude, the huge machines that came out. I got Amber's, I guess, press release saying that Marion was going to come by to pick it up, and here's what you do. And I just felt like what a great community we are, that people didn't have to complain. We proactively did that. I was walking my dogs a couple days later, and I won't name any particular cities, but other cities chose to have their residents put limbs in big trash cans, and it looked terrible. It was just like night and day. And again, it made me proud to live here and know that, we want to keep our neighborhoods clean and safe. And so thank you to Public Works for that big effort as well. That's all I have. Thanks.
Well, Mike, also want to congratulate you on your retirement. You will truly be missed. It was an honor to work with you these past however many years I've been on council, 4 years, 5 years, I don't even know. And I apologize for talking so much tonight and dragging this out. I know Seth texted me earlier and said, hey, talk a lot tonight because we want to make Mike mad at his last. So it's all Seth's fault. Blame him. But congratulations. Enjoy fishing because I know you're going to do a lot of it.
Couple of things, right? Echoing my two colleagues here, Mike, thanks for your service to the city. It's pretty amazing. 32 years is something that you don't hear very often. So that speaks to your commitment to the city. So thank you very much for your service to the city. And I can't wait to hear the big fish stories, right? Or at least see pictures somehow about the big fish stories. So thank you. And secondly, my understanding, I didn't get to be a part of it this year, but the Marion boys baseball team has now made it to state again. So congratulations to those kids, and I wish them the best. I think next week when they play some baseball. So
That's great.
I as well too. I'll continue the thread here, Mike, to say thank you, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. Always has there been questions that we've reached out, and you are very quick to respond and have the details for us, and that helps us understand where your department was going. So we extend great wishes to you and a happy, long retirement, and whatever those endeavors will hold for you in the future. So thank you. Seth, we look forward to your presentation next month on your goals for the next 5 years and the shoes you plan on filling there. So we'll look forward to that presentation as well. So I also would like to extend a thank you to the public services. It was incredible to see, truly at a time when our city is looking somewhat at its not its most pristine, when trees are down and limbs are in the street and notices are going out to say that our city is going out to take quick action of this. I like to watch and monitor some of the social media out there, and one lady had mentioned, she says, one truck came by and picked up all the little stuff and the big stuff's still there. And I just had this vision because a couple seconds later, she says, never mind, another truck just came by and picked up the big stuff. So there truly is systems in place, and what an exciting and very proud moment to see folks come together. We, jump right in and we clean up, and the cleanup efforts do continue out there. There were some horrific trees that went down, and I got the recipient of taking claims on those. So that creates job security for me. Also too, I just wanted to point out, I listen to a lot of financial news throughout the day because that's just my sector of my career. And I found it interesting how we, reflecting a little bit on the CMPO, how we talk about trails and parks and some of these things, and we struggle to find money for creating budgets for a lot of this stuff. But then I listened to the news, and my wife happened to purchase a new fitness bike, and I went in to go pick it up, and the retailer we went to, the shelves were empty. I couldn't believe it. And so some of the statistics that were coming out, I just thought this would be kind of interesting for people to hear, because as we do ask for money and we take a look at our trails and how that's impacted, Fitness bicycle sales from March are up 66%. Children's bicycles are up 59%. Electric bikes, people don't realize this, but there's a lot of bicycles that are electric that look like the normal bicycle. They run on a battery system, kind of like our electric cars. Those are up 85%. And the average person doesn't realize the electric bicycle, the average retail price is $2,100 a bike. Leisure bicycle sales are up 121%. And there's a 45 to 60 day wait period for the retailers to restock their shelves from the bicycle manufacturers. So it was just very interesting to see. I had an appointment down in Solon last night, and I took the back roads down there. Incredible amount of people that are on these trails that go from Ely to Solon, out in the middle of the country. I bet you there was 200 people on that little stint of trail that goes down through that area. So I just thought those were some, I felt a Paul Draper moment there to give some stats out. And again, very excited about our trail systems and so forth. Our constituents are asking for more and more information about our trail network because it is becoming more popular with our COVID issue, and people are making those investments in retail bicycles out there. So I think it's gonna be around for a while. And I'm so glad that we were prepared and ready for that turn, because if we didn't have that infrastructure that we're taking a look at, we would be missing out on that opportunity for our people. So anyway, thank you.
When I was a young lad, actually, I spent a lot of time on the south side of Marion at the Starry baseball fields on Grand Avenue. And if I look back from that era, which is, I'm talking about the mid 60s, the number of parks and recreational opportunities have expanded significantly. And I've really noticed a lot of those opportunities that have expanded just in the last several years. And that's really important to me, because I now have 9 grandchildren, and they don't know the name of these playgrounds. So when we go to playgrounds, they say, "Grandpa, let's go to the green playground." Well, that's the new one out at Lau Park. Let's go to the rainbow playground. Well, that's the one with the rainbow slide. So I know them by what they describe them as, and they don't know them by what we know them as. So it just shows you that all of these are so important as the city has continued to grow, that we need to continue to expand those areas. And Mike has done a tremendous job making that happen. And I think it's incumbent upon that staff and the city council to continue to expand those parks and rec opportunities that we need to be adding over the next 10 to 20 years. So our city is going to continue to grow. We have to continue to have and invest in those amenities. Those are absolutely essential to talk about the quality of life that continues to bring people to Marion.
Great, thank you. For my part, I wanted to give an update on the Community Recovery Task Force. Some of the things that we've been working on. The Feeding Lunches to Youth program reported as of last Friday, they had fed over 11,000 meals, or provided over 11,000 meals. This is a project of the Marion Methodist Church with a lot of volunteers, and they serve traditionally meals to kids all summer long. They've already surpassed what they normally do in a normal summer, and they're having a juice box drive to include in all. They include a juice box with all the lunches, so they're having a juice box drive on the 27th that people can drop those off at the church. We, as the task force, have decided to support that. We will have at Hy-Vee and Fairway a box out front that people can buy the juice boxes and put them in the box, and that'll go on for a week starting the 27th, trying to support that project. We'll also be in our advertising providing the information on how people can make financial donations to that very worthy project. The Marion Food Pantry also is seeing a huge demand, and so we're looking at ways to support them. They are doing delivery of food boxes now to families that need them, and we were able to help connect them with a source for new refrigeration equipment, which they need, and they were able to get a grant. And we're looking at ways to support them with food donations and financial donations also. The community readiness survey, the second survey came out, and the results were pretty much the same as the first survey, and we'll continue doing those surveys periodically to gauge how public sentiment is, or if it's changing or not in terms of their readiness to get back out into the stores and the shops and the restaurants, and what makes them comfortable, what makes them nervous about being out, so that we could help businesses tailor how they deliver their services to meet people's needs and make them feel comfortable. I was able to secure 4,800 masks through the U.S. Conference of Mayors for free, and we've talked to the schools about splitting those up to use them as backup masks to what they're going to be issuing to their students and staff in case, because ultimately kids will forget their mask or lose it. So these will be used as backup masks, and they'll have that supply. So just some of the things we're working on. If people have other ideas. The other thing is the public service announcement by various people in the community. It's a video that was made with various people saying why they wear masks, and it's just a way to reinforce, that there are various reasons why you wear a mask, to support the business community, to protect people, to be able to get back out and watch your favorite sports, whatever it is, different reasons, and that is going to be aired by television stations in smaller clips as a public service announcement. It has been used by the county public health department as an example of what communities can do to support their messaging that they're encouraging in terms of safety and masks. We're seeing in a down period, we are seeing businesses open. Marion's kind of lucky. We see projects proceeding and lots of activity around town. We did have 2 ribbon cuttings earlier in the week out in the Squaw Creek Crossing. We had Pizza Ranch ribbon cutting and grand opening. I was their first customer with a dessert pizza. The kennel out on the East End had their ribbon cutting for an expansion. They now have a spa, a dog spa, and they've become a full service operation. So we helped them celebrate Apple Creek Kennel. The name wasn't coming to me. We helped them celebrate their transitioning the business to new owners and the expansion. We did have 5 businesses open in the West End in the small shops. So it's great to see activity. Uptown has had 13 new businesses open or announce that they're opening this year, which is just a great, I think a great thing to see in this small area. It just shows that people have confidence in Marion, businesses have confidence in Marion, and they're willing to bet on the future. With the COVID crisis, with so many different things going on right now in our city and in our country politically, there's just a lot of anxiety and concerns, and I just remind everyone, there just seems to be a lot of division on various issues, and everything is a political issue. I just remind everyone to put kindness first, and to treat each other as we want to be treated, and to give each other the benefit of the doubt, and be willing to be forgiving, and see the best in each other. So thank you, and have a great weekend. Meeting's adjourned.